Chapter 3. Boo Boo. The gorilla's fur was very black against the green leaves. She had large nostrils and small ears. Her bright brown eyes were full of mischief. Boo, 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 she said. Boo, boo. Boo, boo yourself, said Annie. The gorilla hid behind the leaves again. Then she poked her head out. Peek-a-boo, said Annie. The gorilla clapped her hands together. She stuck out her tongue. Jack and Annie both laughed. Boo, 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 the gorilla said. Then she bounded away through the misty forest. Hey, Boo Boo, don't leave us, Annie called. Jack rolled his eyes. Don't name her Boo Boo, he said to Annie. You don't have to. Wait, Boo Boo, Annie shouted. She took off after the small gorilla. Turn every animal into your best friend, Jack finished. He shook his head. Then he turned and made a list in the notebook. Gorilla behavior. Plays peekaboo. Claps hands, sticks out tongue. He wrote. Jack heard Annie laughing, but then he heard high shrieks. He caught his breath. A leopard? He wondered. Carrying his notebook, Jack hurried in the direction of the noise. He found Annie and the small gorilla perched in 2 trees. What's wrong? Said Jack, standing beneath the trees. Nothing, called Annie. We're just playing. The small gorilla screeched again. Then she scratched her head and hiccuped. Annie screeched too. She scratched her head and hiccuped. While they played, Jack studied the gorilla a bit more. He noticed she was about the size of a 3-year-old kid. Her fingers looked like human fingers. They even had fingernails. He made a new list. Young gorilla, size of a 3-year-old. Fingers like humans, fingernails. Jack heard the tree leaves shaking. He looked up. Annie and the gorilla had both climbed together. Hey, come down, Annie, Jack called. You might fall. Plus, it's getting dark. Jack looked around. Light was fading quickly from the forest. Is night falling, he wondered, or is a storm coming? The small gorilla screeched again and climbed even higher. Hey, Boo Boo, where are you going? Said Annie. She climbed even higher, too. That's enough, Annie. Come down now, said Jack. I'm serious. To his relief, the gorilla settled on a branch. Annie did the same. The gorilla broke off a piece of tree bark. She nibbled on it like candy. Annie broke off a piece of bark. She nibbled on it like a candy bar, too. The gorilla threw down her bark. She grabbed a tree branch and swung to another tree. Don't try it, Annie, shouted Jack. But his warning came too late. Annie threw down her bark. She grabbed a tree branch and tried to swing to another tree. Annie didn't swing like the gorilla. She fell from the tree and crashed down to the ground near Jack. Annie, he cried. That would be scary. Chapter 4. Nightmare. Jack knelt beside Annie. She was gasping for breath. The gorilla bounded down the tree and over to Annie. She bit her lower lip as if she was worried. Are you okay? Jack asked Annie. Yes, Annie panted. Just got the breath knocked out of me. Wiggle your arms and your legs, said Jack. Annie wiggled her arms and her legs. Good, nothing's broken, said Jack. Just then, he felt a drop of water hit his arm. The mist had turned to rain. Uh-oh, said Jack. He threw his notebook into his pack. I better get our umbrella and flashlight, he said. I left them near the tree that looked like a chair. I'll come too, said Annie. She started to sit up. No, catch your breath, said Jack. It's not far. I'll be right back. He took off his jacket and draped it over her. This'll help you stay dry, he said. He pulled on his pack and stood up. The gorilla screeched. Stay with Annie, said Jack. Then he dashed back through the cloud forest. He looked for the fat tree with the wide limbs padded with moss. He peered through the growing darkness. Jack saw many fat trees, and he saw many limbs were padded with moss. Soon he could hardly see the trees at all. He realized that both a storm and night had come to the forest. Forget the umbrella and flashlight, he thought. It's more important to get back to Annie before it's too dark. They could wait together for daylight. As Jack started back to Annie, he could hardly see. He didn't know which way to go. Annie, Boo Boo, he shouted. He felt silly shouting Boo Boo, but he didn't know what else to call the small gorilla. Jack put out his hands. He moved slowly through the dark rainforest. He kept calling for Annie and Boo Boo. He listened for them, but he couldn't hear anything above a loud patter of the rain. Ah! He shouted. He had run into something that felt like a ball of spider webs. As he jumped back, he slipped and fell in the mud. He crawled over to the tree and huddled between the two giant roots. I'll just wait here till morning, he thought. Then I'll find Annie, or she'll find me. As rain dripped all around him, Jack wondered if leopards came out at night. He quickly pushed the thought away. He tried to think about the morning and finding Annie and going home. He was really ready to go home. Why did Morgan even send us to the cloud forest, he wondered. He tried to remember the secret rhyme. To find a special magic, he whispered. He couldn't remember the rest. He felt tired and miserable. He took off his backpack and rested his head on it. He closed his eyes. To find a special magic, he mumbled. But he couldn't find the magic. He couldn't even find the words to finish the rhyme. Worst of all, he couldn't find Annie. Their fun adventure in the cloud forest had turned into a nightmare. That's not a fun ending of Chapter 4, but we'll be right back with Chapters 5 and 6.